بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Reciting Surah Yusuf alayhi salam is a reminder for all of us as to look into our journey of life, because as a reminder that whatever you read in the Quran as stories, one should relate, to them as part of his life, if it's not the whole entire life. So, it's an invitation for all of you to look within, the story of Yusuf, and in reality to look within your life. To look within your life. There's three major aspects in this story. That how can we relate to it? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. We relating to you the best of the stories. The best of the stories because they are real. You can relate to them. And they carry within them the truth. And they carry within them the way how the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has manifested. So when we read the story of the Prophet, as we have said it many times, it's really how the truth is manifested. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always fulfill His promise. In the story of the Prophet, you see how the promise is fulfilled. You see how piety will help you. You see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you. The structure overall of the life of the Prophet, or the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran of other pious, or the people who earned the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all those are manifestation of the truth. So Allah is saying the truth, and you see it exactly how it's happening in the reality, as is going to happen to you. Therefore, when you read the Quran, and many times we have said it, remember that you are reading the story of your own life. You are reading the story of your own life. The first aspect is the aspect that, subhanAllah, from childhood to adulthood is always a trial. And this is Yusuf alayhi salam. So if you make by analogy, you cannot read the surah as an outsider, as something happened to him alayhi salam, or it happened to his father Yaqub, or it happened to his brother. No, this is part of who you are. This is what's happening. This is subhanAllah in the society, how you see it. And this is how the entire life of a believer, of a journey of a human being in general, is subhanAllah trial after trial, a trial after trial. So from childhood to adulthood, you see Yusuf alayhi salam in his trial, hard trial, being left alone in the depth of well, being taken by, a stranger, and at that, time he was child, and then being sold in the market as a slave, and then growing up in the house of Al-Aziz, being seduced by the wife of the Aziz, being put, unjustly into the prison. So imagine if one of us go through the situation. Imagine if one of us will go through the situation. So these are the trial or normal trial of life. Therefore, when you look at our life, at entire life, and you see today, subhanAllah, how many people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose for them the trial. Choose for them the trial for a purpose, for a wisdom. So the trial, when you embrace it as being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you breaking through into your life, so you becomes closer, and the more closer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more success you'll be able to attain. So this is in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. However, in all this trial, you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watching and care, as it will be doing for yourself. Now, as a child, Yusuf alayhi salam being put into the depth of the well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired him that he's going to talk to remind his brother about this incident. And that's, subhanAllah, how to put that confidence in the heart, how to put that tranquility despite the trial. So, for every believer in your journey of life, whatever trial you go through, whatever hardship you go through, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you just rely on Allah, in those moments of the hardship, always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the smile in your heart. Always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help you. Always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that tranquility in your heart. Then it comes from your part. Are you close to Allah? Are you remembering to Allah? Or you are running to anybody else around you to help you and forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that's the biggest problem of everyone living in this life, when they do forget Allah. And when you do forget Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forget you. قَالَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَنَسِيَهُمْ لَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُم. So this is very important, very important. Another aspect very important that we can derive and extract from the story of Yusuf is, subhanAllah, whatever you have within yourself as dreams, whatever, subhanAllah, your thoughts comes talk to you, your inner conversation, your inner, subhanAllah, thoughts, what do you want to do, all of that. This is, subhanAllah, there's a gap between what you want to be, what you want to do, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wisdom. If you get on the path of the iman and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every salat to guide you, then Allah will guide you, if you are sincere. And you asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you and guide you, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you and will help you. Yusuf alayhi salam, he had the strength that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon him, hikmah. قال ولما بلغ أشده آتيناه حكما وعلما. He gave him knowledge. So that ma'adallah that Yusuf had in his heart and defining his personality alayhi salam to be from the mukhlisin, to be from sincere one, it was from the knowledge, it was from the wisdom that he gained since he was a child, and it grew up with him because he's always connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's been, subhanAllah, tried to be seduced by Imra'at al-Aziz, قال ma'adallah. And then the whole, subhanAllah, niswa, and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he heard that they are plotting to put him in prison. He said, Ya Rabbi sijnu ahabbu ilayk. Can you imagine? It's dearer to me the sijn than to fall into their trap and be from the ignorant. This is the believer. Will you be able to do such a thing? You see, always there is crossroad. When you come in your life, there is crossroad. There is right and left. And then you're going to choose. You're going to choose. Yusuf alayhi salam said, ma'adallah. The next step is in the prison. Are we going that Yusuf, subhanallah, he made himself to get to the prison? Are we saying that Yusuf make, wal'iyadu billah, I mean, this is being like kind of for ourselves. If you take the decision like Yusuf, people are going to say, look, he make himself to be in the prison. Why he didn't just, be, kind of embracing the situation? He will have been, pampered. He's going to have been spoiled by Imra'at al-Aziz. He's going to be like a star. But what the star is going to do is going to take him where? To hellfire. Yeah. So will you be able to do such a thing? This is the meaning of the story. This is the moral of the story. Will you be able, when you are offered a worldly life, big thing, big chunk of worldly life, and you're going to say, no, ma'adallah. Why? Because that path, it goes to the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال أكون من الجاهلين. Ya Rabbi, I don't want to be from the ignorant, to fall onto their trap and seduction and everything. And he was a young man. He was a young man. So he has that, subhanAllah, ability, and he has the desire. But how to repress it? How to, subhanAllah, make the jihad? This is the true jihad of the nafs. Who can do that? And we're not saying who can do that, which it means like nobody can do it. Actually, you have to do it if you truly want the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thai people, when they talk about the dunya, we think, he said, look, he ruined himself, he got in the prison. He could have been famous, he could have been rich. Tayyib, rich and being rich and famous was going to take you where? It's going to take you to the hellfire, ya ikhwan. It's going to take you to the worst things that ever existed. To the worst thing that ever existed is hellfire. One of the ladies from, subhanAllah, al-atqiya, al-abidat, he said, every time I go through difficulty, I remember hellfire. I said, subhanAllah, this difficulty, this hardship, nothing have to be compared with hellfire. Falhamdulillah. Ya Allah, give me sabr for this hardship, and do not have me to be in that wal'iyadu billah hellfire. So this is, subhanAllah, the trend of the believer. Then, when we said, you will have things into your heart that you want to do. Yusuf alayhi salam, after years of prison, he want to get out. He feels that he's unjust. And he said to the one that he make him the interpretation of the dream, he said, remember me, with your Lord, that he tell him that there is someone who's unjustly here. Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make that person to forget. Not Allah, he's the shaitan. Allah subhanAllah, and look subhanAllah, the great thing that the shaitan always working in the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He thinks that he did something great to make that person to forget when it was Allah's plan for Yusuf to stay more years in the prison. Here, dear brother, respected sister, many things, you make istikhara. You make istikhara and you're intending for that, you have A and B, but your heart is so inclined to A. So inclined to A. You say, you know, there's more money, there's more things, there's this, more convenience, more this. And the B, like, you know, yeah, Allah, you know, making istikhara, subhanAllah, making istikhara, what it means, have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to choose for you. So, Yusuf alayhi salam, this is the aspiration that you have inside you. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are on the path of Allah, is going to choose for you the best. So what was the best for Yusuf is to stay more years in the prison. Can you imagine? If someone will give you the choice, we say, it's either this person is going to, you know, make connection and get you out because you are justly here incarcerated, or you stay more years in prison. He said, of course I want to leave. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose the best for Yusuf. The best for Yusuf for us is not good. If you look at it, staying himself, Yusuf, he was trying to get out of the prison. And it's not like the prison of today, okay? You get like 3 meals or 5 meals. You know, that's not the prison of today. And people, they sue the prison because they're getting like, you know, malnutrition and they want to work out the whole day. That's not the prison. This is like, subhanAllah, is like being in a dungeon. There is nothing. It's the time of Fir'aun, you know, from the family of Fir'aun. So this is an aspect. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, after this prison, to show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you trust in Allah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made out of His wisdom, subhanahu wa ta'ala, absolute wisdom, for Yusuf to come out. It started by a dream that will not even cross your mind. Was, subhanAllah, the beginning of the triumph of Yusuf to be a prophet, and making his da'wah started with the dream that the king had. He trusts in Allah. Wallahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you and will provide you from way that you never expect. Just to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here Yusuf alayhi salam. The third aspect, there is something that does not change in our life. Does not change. These things are into what connects you between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does not change. The more you safeguard them, the more you protect them, the more successful you will be, the more, subhanAllah, you will have like decent life, you will have joyful life. Allah called it pure, joyful life. قال من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Whoever who acts in righteousness from male and female, and they are believers, will make them live a good life. A good life. A good life not defined by the society with having me. No, good life inside. You feel so good. You feel so peaceful. You feel like, subhanAllah, things that nobody else can get you. And subhanAllah, even in the dire situation, look, Yaqub alayhi salam, when they were like complaining, he said, what are you doing this? You're killing yourself. You cannot even see out of sorrow. But what he said, قَالَ إِنَّمَا أَشْكُوا بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. I just, complained my anguish to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Leave me alone. SubhanAllah, even if you have anguish, if you have distress, it will not going to cause you depression and anxiety. Why? Because you're going to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your sujood. Everything is going to come out. Those tears, that subhanAllah pressure inside you, all come out. Ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. These, dear brother, we find in this surah, and our respected sister, the healing of the heart, the healing of the soul, the healing of the chest, the healing of the emotions. Isn't in this ayah? Just to reflect on it. You never lose hope in Allah. Can you imagine Yaqub after years, 30 years or 40 years, depends on what the scholar of tafsir, they said, after all these years, still telling, do not lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's soothing mercy. Innahu, the people who give up from the hope of Allah are only disbelievers. He teaching them. The most important aspect that need to be in us as a believer and changeable and need to be nurtured every day. Taqwa, sabr, Allah's trust. Trust in Allah. Taqwa and sabr. Look, in the end, Yusuf alayhi salam, he is a prophet. He's teaching us. When his brother, they recognized him, what did he say? He said, look, I did it, or things I did, now I'm going to retaliate, I'm going to take my revenge. قال إنه من يتقي ويصبر. إنه من يتقي ويصبر. Whoever who show piety and be patient, Allah will be always with him. Always with him. And Yaqub, when the shirt was thrown on his face and regained back his sight, what did he say? He said, I'm going to make my point. He said, I told you I know what you do not know. What did he know? That the tawakkul on Allah always has his fruit. What did he know? That trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going always to be fulfilled. What did he know? That believing in the promise of Allah is going to be fulfilled. إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That what he said, that's the ilm that he had, the great knowledge. قَالَ تَوَكَّلْتُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. My trust is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, you see how, subhanAllah, our life goes up and down, swings, a trial, hardship. But if you contain the three aspects, you will be the most successful person in this planet Earth. Successful with your Lord. You will be the most joyful person in this life. Why? Because you maintain taqwa, sabr, and trust in Allah. إِنَّهُ مَن يَتَّقِي وَيَصْبِرْ. Allah told us in Ghazwat Uhud, when the Prophet ﷺ giving the glad tidings to the believer, he said, it's not enough for you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send as a reinforce to you 3,000 angels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered, he said, Bala, it's not only that. If you show patience and taqwa, and they will attack you right now and you're not ready, Allah will send you 5,000 of the angels. And that's just to give you confidence. Because the nasr, the victory is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Taqwa wa sabr. So, if we see ourselves, we have a problem with that, then subhanAllah, we need to turn against ourselves and like subhanAllah, pointing yourself, you're not a good person. Yeah, you have to say, when you do the tashahhud, this one is called the sabbab, the insulter. That's how subhanAllah you show humility to Allah. And you making this is like you're insulting yourself. You're acknowledging your sins. Ya Rabbi, ظلمت نفسي ظلما كثيرا. Yeah? And you do it with the sabab. Then we do sabab, turn to yourself and talk. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give victory and help in our people of Gaza. But they are the people, the noble one. They have, most of them, inshallah, لا نزكي الله أحدا. They have the taqwa and the sabr and the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you don't know what they have in their heart. You don't know. Most of them or many of them, they have more joyful life than many of the people who have like billions. Even though they don't have even a place where to sit or where to sleep. And they don't have even a shelter. You see like subhanAllah people, the whole masjid is broken, is like collapsed and they still praying. You can take everything but you cannot take their iman. You can take everything but you cannot take that cohesion of the family together that eat even subhanAllah under the rebel that around us. And this is, dear brother, again, taqwa, sabr, piety, righteousness, which define your relation with Allah. Sabr, which is your energy for the mujahada, and your trust in Allah will keep you going, because you're going to see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had promised you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called, this is, you have to rejoice it, and that is the greatest of felicity, and that is the greatest of success. فنسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يرزقنا التقوى والصبر والتوكل والثقة عليه به وعليه وتود الصلاة يرحمكم الله.